Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of How Did They Build That? This is the Glide Apps edition. In these videos, in this series, we'll be taking a look at Glide apps. We'll be taking a look at an app from their template store, from Glide's template store, and we'll break it down and see how it was built. How did they build that? And along the way, the aim is to learn a few things about Glide, and and then bits and pieces from different apps, and just learn how did various people build these apps. The format for this video is fairly straightforward. There's not much prepared. It is really, I'll be looking at the app at the same time of recording, and it's pretty casual. We'll take a look at it together and just see how it is built, and I'll just walk you through how how this app that the app was built. My name is Clyde D'Souza, and once again, welcome to How Did They Build That? For this video, what we'll do is we'll take a look at this template called Unread Books by David Siegel, who's the CEO and co-founder of Glide. So what we'll do is we'll copy this app. In the process, in the background, what it's doing is it is pretty much signing me in to my Glide account, and it is copying the template from the template library into my account. And what it does is, it has to copy the spreadsheet. It has to copy all of the other data that was there in the spreadsheet as well. So all of that in the background, and then finally load the app from my account itself. So what I'll do is I'll minimize my window, probably move it even to the right over here. So what do we have here? Before we go into the actual functionality of it, like as in the back end, we'll just look at the app itself and see what does the app do. The first tab is a to read tab. What this has, it has a progress bar, and then it has a list of unread books. So a lot of images and perhaps a lot of books. All good. If I click on one of these books, it gives me a details screen of that particular book. All the fields look like they are editable. If I click on my books, it gives me a list of all books, and I can see that there's a little bit of a pill or a capsule here which tells me that it is unread. I'm guessing that there'll be a few other books in this list that is going to show up as read as well. All good with that. And then finally the third tab, which is a new book, or next book. And if I click on that, it randomly, based on the icon of this image, or based on the icon for this tab, it just randomly suggests a book from the list of books that I have in my data. So this is pretty interesting as well. I can see there's a pencil icon here to edit the list of books. So let's take a look at how it was built. The first one is the home page, which is really the to read tab. There are two components in this. You have the progress bar, which is populated with the data for this progress bar is populated from the column called progress. Based on the icon, it looks like it is a computed column. For a progress bar, you can have either a bar style or a circle style or a half circle style. So there's a few options here. We have minimum and maximum values. Looks pretty straightforward. The next component, which is right below the progress bar, is an inline list. The style for this list is tiles, hence the images, but you can obviously change it to a list and it'll just show text, mostly text at least. If I look at the various configuration items for this list, I can see that the title is Unread, which is the title for the component. Now the source for this component is the books sheet, and in that sheet you have multiple columns, and so you have title, author, the image, URL that shows up for the image field, um, so on and so forth. So a lot of values which you can definitely click and just select something else and play around with, and the moment you update anything over here, so if I update the text size for example, you can see that the text size changes on the screen in front of you as well. So it is very real time, so whatever you do, it just shows up here in real time. So that's fantastic to click something and learn how it works. Now if I click one of these books, I go into the details screen. The details screen has a few options here. The first one is an image. The first one is an image. The A few other text entries. So it's just normal information that that is pulled up from the spreadsheet and displayed on your screen. So you have text, you have a checkbox whether you have read this or not, and then finally some notes for you to add some notes. So if I add some notes, I'm hoping that this will actually get stored in the list of notes. Yep, so it is pretty much getting stored. So you don't actually have to even submit any information. And that is good. That is good. So what you have here is, instead of just displaying information has a detailed screen, what they have done here is display the information but also make it editable right here itself. So you don't have to click the edit a pencil icon here and then show up another form and then edit the contents from that as well. So it's nice, it's editable right here itself, and that works great. So if I click on my books, again it is almost the same drill. You have an inline list, and the inline list shows up, pulls some information from the same spreadsheet. You can see that there's title, author, image with placeholder, all that same information available. If I click on one of these, again it shows up a detail screen with the same fields, right? So you have image, you have text, a checkbox, and a text entry, and you can obviously edit this information. And the moment you change some information from here, it will save it to the spreadsheet. So one thing to note is that if I click on this and check this box to say I have read this book and click on back, now the label has disappeared. So that's what those labels were for. And let's see if we can find out where that label comes from. It should be in one of these options over here. The tag is what basically shows up as the label. So the status column holds the information whether it is read or unread, and that value is what shows up here. So if I change this tag value to say title, you can see that the capsule here now shows the value from the title column. I'll just move this back to status. Looking at the column type, it looks like it is a computed column, so we'll take a look at that in just a minute. And apart from that, everything else is pretty standard. I can see that there's an option to add new books over here, so That's because of this checkbox. In terms of the filters, you have a search bar, you have titles in ascending order, and in-app filter is filter by status. So pretty decent, pretty standard functionality going on here. And then finally, the third tab is the next book. And what this is just basically pulls an information from the books spreadsheet tab. And the information that's presented is really just text, some more text for the title, author, and just an image placeholder. There's a pencil icon here which we may not require um, unless you want to actually edit the book that has been suggested to you, but otherwise in the options tab you have just one filter, which is read is not true. Right, so your what the app is really suggesting is suggesting the next unread book for you to read. That's really what it is suggesting. So let's take a look at a few things that we spoke or we looked at in the past few minutes. Let's start with this one. So you have next book, and looking at the icon, it looks like it is randomly assigning you a book. So how does it actually do that? And the way it does that, it randomly suggests you a book, is based on a sort option here. So you can sort it randomly. So if I change this to title, it is going to suggest you from A to Z. If I change this to Z to A, it's going to suggest you from the bottom. So what this is, it's randomly, and because it is randomly, every time the user opens up the app, it will randomly pull one row from the books sheet, from the spreadsheet, and it will pull that information here on this particular tab. So that's a pretty neat way to introduce something randomly, so show some random information to the user. A really good example of how you can use this functionality to bring that randomizer for on your app. The next thing we sort of briefly touched upon is the column type for status. I said that this is probably a computed column. So let's take a look at how the data actually looks like for this app. And so to do that, we will go on to the first tab here, which is the spreadsheet, or which is the tables really. The source um, for this app is the Unread Books spreadsheet, and if I click on that, it will take me to the Unread Books spreadsheet in Google Drive. I have two sheets here, books and profiles, and I'm on the books tab at the moment. And so if I just drag myself here, I can see that there's a list of books. Again, just text of the text type. You have a list of books, list of authors. There's a column type of Boolean. So if I click on edit, I can see that this is of type Boolean, and either it can be checked or unchecked, true or false. Notes, photographs, and then from here onwards, it seems like it's all unread. It's all calculated columns. So let's take a look at how these actually work. So the first one is the status itself. So this is what we just looked at before. If I click on edit, I can see that this column is of type if then else. There are a few cases. If the value of the red column, which is the Boolean column that we just had a look at, is not true, then it is unread. Otherwise, it should be false, right? So that is, well, sorry, otherwise it should be red. So we could enter that, and that's what would show up here. So if I click on done, this is what shows up here. And then if I go back to my app, earlier we did not have any value in this capsule, now it shows as red. So that is really what triggers it. So that's how it works. So that's this column here. Then you have a few other columns. So the owner column is sort of calculated, which is just the person who's entering the information. Now this is very interesting. So these three columns are used to display the progress bar. So you can see that the progress bar, after checking that one box, this progress bar shows up with a little progress status over here. Now, how does it do that? How does it actually calculate? So it says it is relying on the data from the progress column from the spreadsheet. And so what does the progress column look like? The progress column is a computed column. And if I click on the edit option here, it says that it is of the column type math. So it's a percentage. The configuration is red divided by total into 100. The value for red is a replacement. So this is replaced by the value from this column, which is called total red. And the value for total is a replacement from this column. So this is the total books. So the value for total will come from the value of the column called total books. So it's a little replacement thing going on here in our formula. The precision is 1 and units is percentage. And so that's what determines whether you have a decimal point here or not. And the percentage is what which shows up at the end. Now, total read and total books. So total read is probably the count of how many books we read. And if I click on edit, the column type is roll up. Now in Glide, the column type roll up allows us to sort of count the values in a particular column and sort of like summarize it, or that's why it's called roll up, right? So it just rolls up the information into another column, the value into another column. So in this case, what we are saying is in the configuration section, look at the red column from the books sheet and count the number of times the value is set to true. Therefore, what this does is it counts only when you check these boxes. So if I check this box right now, you can see that the value immediately changed to 2 from 1. This column did not change because that's the total number of books, and the percentage changed. So now we have read 4% of our list. So the progress should have changed. If I click on the app again, you can see that the progress bar has moved a little further. So similar to the total read, you have the total number of books, which is another roll up field. And what it says is look at the title column from the books sheet, which is this one. And from there, just bring me the count. Now you could do count unique if there were duplicate values, but in this case, you just count the number of rows. So this should give you the same value even if you count authors, or maybe not. Maybe we haven't actually listed out all the authors. So let's have a look. There you go. So we have, so it does the count, but it does the count only based on if the value, if the cell has some values. So that's why when we clicked on total books, obviously it was counting the rows from the title column. And obviously when we had 47 columns, 47 rows, But when we change this to author, to look at the author column, it only showed up as 16. And that is because a lot of the values in this column is empty. And so it's probably only counting the values, the cells that have values in it. And so if I switch this to author, you can see that it's only 16. Let me cancel that. So that's how the values are calculated and showed up and shows up on your screen. You have a few other ones here for images as well. So you have image. So it's an image with placeholder. So what this says, it's a similar if condition. If the photo column is not empty, then pretty much use the same photo. Otherwise, just use something, a placeholder image. In this case, it just sort of seeds an image of this particular resolution, and that value will be added here in this column. And what do we have here? You have another column called image with placeholders. Image with placeholders. So this column is of type template. And so what this says is, it says look at this column. So the template is this column here, image with placeholder template, and replace the word seed. So this is case sensitive, hence it will only replace the uppercase occurrence of the word seed with the title. But based on a template, what it will do is it will replace this word with the title of the book. And so if you pick up any one of the titles from here, let's say better than human, and you click on better than human, and so that's what and so that image will show up. But of course, this URL itself is a placeholder, a site where you can generate placeholder images, but that's the intention of how it will actually work. And therefore a lot of these URLs is constructed dynamically. So that is how this app works. Most of it is sort of like the out of the box components with just the common components added to the screen. But things like the progress bar uh, and this randomly generated book or suggested book, these things are a little nice nuggets that has been added to this app. And so if you do copy this app, you can play around with those pieces just for learning, or maybe implement that in your app as well, and see how it is actually used. The final thing that I wanted to cover is the view has user, and it shows as David Siegel's profile. The reason it's showing as David Siegel's profile is because we have a table called profiles in our spreadsheet, and essentially his information is over here. So if I just say John Smith, and if I say John Smith at sample.com, and then if I go to my app, I should be able to click on the drop down and select John Smith as the user, and then view the app as John Smith. But of course, if you don't want all this information, you can pretty much just delete the values from the table, and it will just pull up your information instead. So if I delete both the values, go back, it'll just be as anyone, and that should be fine too. So just a normal public user, and that should really be fine too. So it depends on how you want to really view the app as. um, we don't want to sign in, so we'll close this. Once you're ready with the app that you're building, you can click on the publish button here in the top right and click on the publish app to publish your app, and make it live, and then you can just share the URL with your friends and family, and then they can use your app as well. So pretty easy, and there's a heaps of templates on the Glide store. Feel free to copy this, copy this one, copy the other templates, and play around with how it looks like. um, and as for the video, this is all I wanted to cover. And let me know in the comments, if you like this video, if you found this insightful. um, Definitely like and subscribe to the channel, and like the video as well, and definitely share this video with your friends and family. That's it for now. Thank you for watching, and see you in another video.